Astrology is the great calendar and timekeeper of humanity. Last week, the Sun opposed Neptune at step 0 Aries. And here's the clincher. For the last 2,000 years, every time this happens, a difficult pattern unfolds in humanity. And I have the full astro story of it coming up on Namaste Today with the soul horoscopes and the zodiac weather. Keep streaming. Hello, folks. I'm sending you some warm love and cheer your way. Thanks for clicking, and welcome to Namaste Today, featuring soul horoscopes and the zodiac weather. I'm your Age of Aquarius host, Christopher Witecki, the channel guardian of the step system in astrology, and also the acting sensei to Serious Joy. The show you're about to see is nearly 20 years old, by the way. I was the first astrologer on YouTube to break forth that fourth wall and preach the planets. And now, I must say, in all the time I've been on the air this entire time, this year is probably going to take every shred of my talent and experience. I have the dusty details coming up, so keep streaming. But first, as a friendly reminder, if you're watching on YouTube, please be kind and do subscribe. Hit the bell button so you're notified. And whatever other platform you might be watching on, please do me a little favor. Write just a comment or two and tell us what you pray for and wish for on this earth at this time. I think it will not only help the world, it'll also help Serious Joy become a little bit more seen by those Capone algorithms. All right, now let's move on to today's signs and the headlines with our top story. Step 0 Aries, the sign of hard times. Last Tuesday, September 23rd, the Sun opposed Neptune in Aries at 0 degrees. 0 is the number of death, regeneration, transformation, trespassing, and even thievery. It is ruled by Pluto, the transformation planet and the planet of death and all those things. This exact transit has occurred over the last 2,000 years 7 times. Last week was the 8th time. And ironically, the 7th time was the first time since Christ. It's interesting, right? Because 7 is the number of Christ. But 1861, 1370, 879, 715, 388, and 224, and 267 BC, these are the dates where the Sun opposed Neptune at 0 degrees Aries. And a special thanks to Robbie Hunt, our lead astrologer, who did all this deep research. Here's the thread: those years aren't really random. They're all marked with Neptune dipping into Aries based on historical cycles. And Neptune orbits every 165 years or so it stays in a sign about 14 years at a stretch, but retrogrades pull it back in sometimes into Pisces. So it lines up with pivotal shifts like wars and disasters. For instance, 1861 kicked off the Civil War era, right as Neptune just entered into Aries. Think emancipation, fights, industrial reboots, even freak floods, setting the U.S. rainfall records up for a whole century and kind of marking them off. In 1370, 100 Years' War was dragging on. Black Death caused scars on the flesh. Europe was in a famine. Neptune's foggy illusions met Aries' raw aggression at that time. We also had sparkling endless border clashes. In 879, Vikings, that's when the Vikings swarmed England, carving out kingdoms amid chaos-perfect Neptune and Aries. With the dissolve of old empires, new identities were forged in battle. And in 715, the Moravian Franks fracturing. Power vacuums are now filled by warlords again. You know, that pioneering disillusion vibe again from Aries and Neptune and Pisces. So Roman emperors in 388, Theodosius was when he banned paganism. So that was when we had this Christian crusade. Zeal turning brutal. Spiritual fantasies are now weaponized for the first time. In 224, Parthian dynasty, crushed by the Sassanids, rebirthed through a whole conquest. In 267 BC, Hellenistic kings battling for scraps after Alexander the Great's innovative warfare was now emerging across the times. So what is the theme across all of these? Well, Neptune and Aries fuels these idealistic revolutions. Spiritual faith happens. They turn into violent freedom quests once Neptune goes into Aries. And not just that, record catastrophes like heat waves or floods every time. Per the old charts and maps, and surprisingly an urge for new beginnings via total teardown. So we want to rebirth, but we kill everything before we do it. Historical sources tie this up very tidy. Civil War photos, for instance, the first widespread use in 1861, mirroring Aries' visual punch on Neptune's dreams. So the first time we see the damage, we see the drama. The next cycle is this year, 2025. The Sun in Neptune and Aries just went to oppose 0. The Sun opposed Neptune and Aries 0 just last Tuesday, as I mentioned. Back in history, we find common themes between what we can expect this time. Well, we find that no single theme really ties into everyone. So, but there is an overall zoom out. If you zoom out, you look at and pivot at the points, you'll find that overall wars are erupting, empires are crumbling, trade routes are flipping around. 1861, for instance, off the Civil War. 1370 was the mid-100 Years' War mess. In 879, the Vikings raiding Britain, et cetera, et cetera. We have the Moravians fading. We have Rome stamping out heresy. So a lot of these kind of wars were unfolding every time. Even the Hellenistic skirmishes were part of it in 227 BC. So expect big power shifts, economic jolts like inflation or shortages, and folks clashing over land or faith. Astrologically, the prior periods held Saturn in Aquarius. This is a difference. Saturn rules limits. Aquarius is disruption and innovation. So revolutions or breakdowns were fitting. But this time, Saturn has joined Neptune in Aries. Will this bring total domination to one side or control the fire from burning down the house? Well, economically, these wars are always tanked with agricultural cotton crashes in 1861. Economically, we had weak spikes in 1370. Ultimately, we had debts soaring when kings had to overtax their people. In 1861, the U.S. GDP dropped 5%. Tariffs hit the South so hard. In 1370, Black Death meant that no workforce means high wages, doubled the grain prices as well. So people couldn't work, people couldn't have enough workers, and people couldn't eat enough. Patterns there as crisis will breed change. So the cotton prices crashed, for instance, when secession kicked off, and the South's whole economy, about 60% of the U.S. exports at the time, cotton, was built on it. So tariffs and blockades were gutted, and revenue was actually hurting tremendously. Europe was also having a hard time from their own Crimean War hangover, and so there was grain shortage everywhere. If you jump back to 1370, the 100 Years' War had just torched Normandy's fields. All their wheat was burned up, doubled in price, and they had labor shortages from Black Death also. This meant that basically serfs were getting wages like kings, and kings were borrowing money to fund knights. All this time, again, massive disruption, sudden inflation spikes, and also rulers scrambling for cash through taxes or loans that never quite covered it. As an eternal optimist, I have to say, I believe this time will be different. Pluto is in Aquarius this time. We are upon the age of Aquarius. And when shortages happen, scientific discovery tends to boom with humans. We have solutions. We have a choice this time. We are educated. We remember our history. We have the internet. We have AI. And most of all, we have the wisdom of each other. I have planets and transits coming up next, but hold on to that heartfelt positive for the future because I feel it's going to be great. This Zodiac weather is from Saturday, September 27th to Friday, October 3rd, 2025. Sponsored by the Serious Joy 40 Days of Truth and Purpose. Do you know your purpose in life? What's special about this lifetime? Serious Joy has a unique, one-of-a-kind program that for 40 days will unveil your purpose. Using the astrology of your natal chart, you'll receive special lectures from Christopher Witecki and journal prompting that will guide you step by step, day by day through the Scorpio veil to unveil your life's purpose and what you consider as your personal truth. Participants leave the program with remarkable clarity, a new direction, and strength to finally be the star they really are. Enroll today at siriusjoy.academy. That's siriusjoy.academy. Begins 0 degrees Scorpio. Take a look at the weekend forecast. We're now in the sign of Libra, opening up to receive, but first we have to have a breakthrough in receiving from ourselves. On Saturday, it's sunny and honest. Step 4 tells us that Uranus rules the day. Consider breakdowns followed by breakthroughs. This is you not associating with who you need to be with yourself. That is heartfelt. The moon is in Sagittarius, so feelings are reviewing your story thus far. The root intention is, I receive emotional belonging. And the affirmation, I believe I am shifting, and so are you. On Sunday, it's sunny and chatty. Step 5 tells us Mercury rules the day. It'll be a day of being cerebral, intellectual, and of course, communicative. The moon in Sagittarius again reveals our stories with our friends, family, and neighbors. The root intention is, I receive conversation. And the affirmation, I am ready to understand. Taking a sneak peek at the week ahead, it looks like through the week of Monday through Friday, we will open up and accept and receive with Grandmaster Libra on Monday, and by Friday, we are manifesting a new mirage. On Monday, it's sunny and serious. Step 6 means that Libra rules the day. This is the first Grandmaster day of the Libra season. This is where you will re-architect the way to approach yourself and how to open up. The moon begins in Sagittarius and crosses the galactic center, which means this will be the new you for the next year, then shifts into Capricorn where you get serious and start making decisions. The root intention of the day is I receive agreement with myself. And the affirmation, I am seeing my truth and I am seeing your truth. On Tuesday, it's partly sunny and extending. Step 7 tells us that Neptune rules the day. Spirit and intuition are strong. Pay attention to the little details. The moon in Capricorn helps you feel through some decisions about daily life and particularly about who you are. The root intention is I receive guidance, and the affirmation, I am leaning into spiritual diplomacy. On Wednesday, it's cloudy but surprising. Step 8 tells us that Saturn rules the day. You're feeling strong, responsible, and ready to take charge, and deciding what your marriage vows will be to yourself. The moon starts in Capricorn and then ends in Aquarius, so you go from a serious to a spaced out energy. The root intention is, I receive direction. The affirmation is, I'm holding the emotional tone of self-love. And that evening, Mercury and Libra will square Jupiter at 22 degrees Cancer. This means there may be a bit of an emotional argument between your mind and your belief structure. By the time your head hits the pillow, you'll know where you belong in the future. On Thursday, it's sunny and detached. Step 9 tells us that Mars rules the day. This is a day to move forward and get married. Take action with your promises to yourself. The moon in Aquarius feels like it's a new day and perhaps a new world. The root intention is, I receive action. And the affirmation, I am taking a step, giving the ego some space. And then on Friday, it's sunny and rising. Step 10 tells us that Mother Earth rules the day, a day where you will hold space to materialize your new inner marriage into something solid, a soul contract with yourself. The moon begins in the high degrees of Aquarius, so you'll be feeling a new world birthing, but then shifts into Pisces, where you also feel a new spiritual story beginning. The root intention is, I receive resolution. The affirmation, I'm defining my character with newfound courage. And in the afternoon, another Mercury mix-up. Mercury and Libra will oppose Chiron retrograde at step 25 Aries, calling for you to take a more compassionate tone in your thoughts and a more compassionate tone about your ego and how it has changed, leading to the next weekend of marriage integrity and then relationships to people in the outer world at large. We at Serious Joy are calling the month of Libra, Pulling Apart, Coming Together. The subtitle is Accepting the Heart's Leads. And we feel that's what's going to happen, in the sense that humanity is going to sort of pull apart at first, because we're going to be divided on different sides of the scales of Libra, divided by different judgments of each other, divided of different judgments of ourselves. Because remember, a judgment of another person is really a judgment of yourself projected onto the other person. That said, we're going to separate and pull apart many things, organizations, marriages, all sorts of stuff, relationships really breaking up, maybe a higher divorce rate in the end when we actually see what happens. That divorce rate would probably come out in Scorpio and Sagittarius, by the way, because it takes a while, but they'll say we're done during Libra. Now, what has to happen is that we have to surrender our conflict to our heart's opinion. That means that we have to let our heart do the talking. The difference between being low vibration and high vibration is, if you are just in your mind and you haven't checked your heart or your feelings for an affirmation to what you're thinking, if you don't check your heart before you say that to that person, if you don't check your heart before you talk to your boss, well, then you are going to find that you are in the conflict and you're not actually rising above it. Your heart, however, has magical language. Your heart has the magic of creation, spirit, eternity, and oneness. So when you speak from the heart, you bring in these terms into your own vocabulary, into your own message, and people may say, boy, that was really crappy the way you said that, Chris, but I felt your heart, and so it's okay. The heart gets you away with certain mistakes. The heart allows you people to know that you have a care behind your words. And so during this first chapter of this first week of Libra, really, we'll move from step 4 Libra all the way to step 10. That spectrum of consciousness is what I call the mirage. That's the part of you that is married to you forever. And this is important because people may not realize this. We'll talk about this in the horoscopes in a moment. But your mirage and how you treat yourself is how you attract others. The way you treat yourself is how you attract others. Then what happens is, if you treat yourself very poorly, well, then your partnerships and marriages and your relationships don't go very well. Even your relationship to chocolate, your relationship to money can be sour if you treat yourself poorly. And then the worst thing is social issues come up. In other words, how does Russia relate to the United States? How does the United States relate to China? How does China relate to, the rest of the world? All this comes down to how you are to yourself and how you mirror yourself. So we're going to talk about these themes in detail, and we're going to talk about 2 particular aspects in your soul horoscopes. One, Mercury in Libra is going to square Jupiter at step 22. That's going to basically be an argument that happens between the 2 parts of your consciousness. And then we escalate the argument later. That's on Wednesday. On Friday, we escalate the argument when Mercury in Libra opposes Chiron. What this basically is an insult and giving them the finger. But it turns into, I think, a nice way of being peaceful with ourselves. So it's going to be a rocky week. It's going to be a growth week, and you're going to grow on the inside more than you've grown for the entire year. But first, before we do our horoscopes, let's take a word from our sponsor. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Lisa Brazelton, the architect of the Chamber of Wealth Consciousness program and the founder of Sage Prosperity Partners. Are you ready to break free from old money stories and belief systems? This fall, there are 2 cohorts which I will be facilitating, and I would love for you to join me. In this program, I will help you open up the light of divine prosperity. There are limited spaces available. You can see the link below, and Serious Joy members will receive a discount. I look forward to seeing you.
Well, as you learned earlier, we're in a major transition this year. And as we move into Libra, we'll be dealing with our mirage. In fact, I believe we're actually going to get some mirage counseling. If you're not familiar, well, the mirage is a term I came up with a long time ago to describe our relationship to ourself, that we are, in fact, first married to ourself, making us all polygamists if we get married. But it means that we have to be there for ourselves before we can be there for others. This is obviously a step that has been skipped due to all sorts of practices, including certain organized religions and certain practices of being a good person, letting someone else go before you, those types of things. Well, that's great, but energetically, you came first. You're the first one on stage, and therefore you're the one you should take care of first. Now, because we had a very powerful year of karma facing, we had the karma clearing that happened in Pisces, and then just recently in Virgo, we became, and our life became, and is becoming this karma-free version of ourselves. Therefore, it's not necessary to treat yourself the way you have treated yourself in your mirage. And if you know me, you know that I've always had some mirage problems. That's because each of the 12 signs actually approaches their mirage in a different part of their life. As a Taurus, I approach my mirage in my health, in my daily life, in my lifestyle, thus working too hard and being unhealthy a lot. I'm learning, I'm getting better, I swear, I promise myself. Or the opposite, Scorpio, your mirage is all about your faith to spirit and how much you carry faith. So for each of the 12 signs today, we'll be talking about where your mirage problems are and what they may be caused by. Then also we have some Mercury issues. I think Mercury is getting a little sassy this week. I've had it in the titles. First of all, I think Mercury in Libra is going to insult Jupiter. And that means that basically there's going to be a square between Mercury and Jupiter. And the reason why it's an insult is because it's at step 22. All right. Them's fighting words, step 22. Step 22 is when you come to the table with a lot of emotion and you have a lot of other emotion, and the emotion starts bouncing off the emotions and boiling like water. And you end up with an outcome that you belong or don't belong with something. Now, 22 means that the mind ultimately in Libra has these ideas about how relationships should go, or how a relationship to something in long-term should go. So maybe a relationship to your health long-term, or your country long-term, or your religion, or your job long-term, or of course your marriage long-term. That would be the marriage decan. But once it hits 22 and squares Jupiter, it means that there are changing ideas and beliefs about how you ought to feel. You're going to realize, I don't believe I should feel this way anymore in my job. I don't want to feel this way anymore in my marriage. And so this is going to create an internal argument with yourself about where you truly belong in the future. And I got to warn you, it may be revolutionary. We'll talk about where that spot is in each of the 12 signs also. And then lastly, Mercury will then flip off Chiron. Why flip off? Well, Mercury's going to oppose Chiron retrograde at step 25 Aries. And the reason why this is relevant is step 25 Aries Chiron is anyone who has been damaged by organized religion in a past life. So if religion, a cult, any kind of thing that took you way off the mark, ultimately your mind is now going to oppose this. And this means that your mind is being called to change and called to transform the way you think, because you can now forgive yourself for any wrongdoing. It wasn't that there was any wrongdoing. It's that you were lied to and told that you were wrong and a sinner. So ultimately, I think there might be some sort of a finger going up when it comes to our old wounds about being told what to believe. So let's first start, of course, with our 12 horoscopes. And we're going to start with the birthright of the astrology zodiac and also Western astrology, the Aries. Aries, you are having some literal mirage problems. And your problem is mostly an identity crisis, because you have been changing your identity for a long time, healing a lot of your issues, facing the stuff that gets in the way, facing, the problems that people have always complained about finally, but also some things like that you step into the street first and then look later. You have issues where you have gone too far. And then because you've gone too far, sometimes you don't go far enough. So all of this basically may appear like you have an ego issue, and you do. You are the ruler of ego. But really, it's the mirage in the background. Your mirage vows probably were never set, frankly. I don't know if Aries tend to have mirage vows. They promise themselves things like greatness and success and lots of money and, the most beautiful partner, but they don't always promise how to cherish themselves. And for those of you Aries who are mean, well, we know that means you're mean in your mirage. If you're mean to other people, it means you're mean to yourself. Particularly for you, the way you treat yourself is the way you end up treating others. And I know that being tough on yourself seems to work, but modern technology and spirituality says, our studies show that when you're nice to kids, they actually turn out better. So this is a time to go to a new mirage clock and to look at yourself and say, what will bring the best out of me? And maybe ask your heart that question, not Mercury, because your mind doesn't know. It was programmed for the old world. It's going to take a full year to reprogram our thoughts into this new world. And so you've got to be conscientious. Now, this applies also to Aries risings in particular, but less extremely so. So for this whole week, as we move through the steps, you will be, in fact, working through, in the very beginning, your understanding and belief of yourself. And by the very end, sort of like the behavior necessary, how you will take action and what you're going to manifest when it comes to your mirage. So you literally are writing your mirage vows quite literally. And I think for the first time from the heart, I hope, if you've watched this show anyways. Now, Mercury squaring Jupiter at 22 means that there may be a little bit of an argument inside yourself between relationships in general. This would be a partner, a business partner, a romantic partner, a business partner. It could be a partner such as an organization, your company, another company. It could be a strategic alliance. It's just a long-term partnership. And what you're realizing is that certain aspects about the way you think about partnership is getting in the way of feeling good. And you are maybe going to have a moment where you feel sick to your stomach, or you just want to throw up over something. And the issue really is that your beliefs about how you can feel need to change. Change how you believe. The way you were raised to feel is not the way you'll feel in the new era. No matter how great of a family you had, it was not new era set up. And the last point here with Mercury opposing Aries is a big one for you, because this one will be really where you have an argument between partnerships and also your forgiveness. And I believe that to some degree you have been unforgiving in partnerships because you've been unforgiving to yourself. And so the moral of the story here is forgive thyself, and there'll be no promise forgiving others. Taurus, I talked about this already in the open. Tauruses, like myself, we have mirage issues when it comes to our daily life. We allow ourselves to get out of balance. We will give ourselves too much food and then not enough food, or too much exercise, not enough exercise. We kind of really go put the foot on the gas and then put the foot on the brake. I think we make everyone in the car sort of seasick, the car being your own body. And so it's now time to make peace with your body once and for all. And I, for one, am talking to myself here as I do this horoscope. So it's the new mirage vows need to be really how to keep yourself in balance for this whole week, every step of the way. And in that context of balance, what is fair to you and what's fair to your body? I don't know if you look at what's fair. I think that you probably put your career ahead of time, your responsibilities ahead of time, all the weight on your shoulders. The bull is out in the field, doing all the work basically, but not really looking at, the fact that it's being set up to be sold for meat. Okay. So it's time now to be thinking in those terms. And by the end of the week, I think you're going to have a new understanding of how to be mindful of yourself and mindful of your own heart cared for body. All right. The physical body, literally. So by the way, if you have any issues like dentists, things like that, schedule the appointments at least during this week. Now, for you in the square to Cancer, it's a little different. This is your lifestyle versus the way you think. And so what you believe and think about how life should be is interrupting the way life becomes. And so there's a conflict, an emotional conflict between having a breakthrough and seeing life differently altogether, like what life is, like big philosophical, and recognizing that I belong thinking differently now about life in general, because it's been wearing down my feelings and driving me crazy, which also contributes to my lifestyle, my tiredness, and also, of course, your body and your health. So there'll be a little bit of an argument with yourself on Wednesday, a hump day, where you realize you've got to think differently about your health, and that means thinking differently about life. And so the two will go hand in hand. Now, giving Chiron the finger, this has to do actually with an opposition between daily lifestyle and faith. The truth of the matter is that you tend to have faith until something goes wrong or you make a mistake. And so Tauruses are kind of stubborn, right? It's because you have Aries in the house of faith. You literally have ego when it comes to God consciousness. Now, when you are in synergy with God consciousness, you are so strong and so dedicated, it's lifelong. But if you are having an issue with God, you are quick to break up, go independent, and say you'll do it on your own. So what needs to happen now is, as Mercury gets to step 25, to be compassionate to yourself in the moment. Compassion is the actual answer here. By being compassionate in your daily life, you will have no problems having faith. And being compassionate to you about what you've gone through in life will make lifestyle and your daily life a lot easier. So give it a try. I'll let you know how it works for me next week. Gemini, you have been poor in your mirror when it comes to listening to your inner child. You have been really a neglected parent to yourself. And you may think, well, I'm very fun and I like to crack jokes and things like that. That's different. We're talking about you actually talking to your heart and telling your mind to shut up and listen. Something you don't do. Your mind always tries to tell your heart what to do, tell your heart what it likes, tell your heart what the details are, and usually kind of bore the heart with all the different facts and figures and the prices and the details and all these types of things. It's time for you to listen to your heart. That's where you're out of balance. You don't listen. And if you're a Sirius Joy subscriber, you know that every morning we go into the vault and we talk to our heart. May sound silly, but people are healing fast in our network. So I would recommend that every morning you put some time aside and you let your mind say what it wants to say. You let your feelings say what they want to say, and then you ask your heart. Once your thoughts and feelings are cleared, ask your heart what it wants. In fact, if you want to be really bold, give your heart 3 wishes every day for the entire week and see how your life changes just from that, just by knowing and listening to what your heart is telling you. Now, when it comes to Mercury squaring Jupiter in Cancer, this for you has to do with personal dreams. When it comes to personal dreams, you have this idea that you can't afford it. And the reason why you have an idea you can't afford it is because you believe that if you feel bad, nothing good's going to happen. And you don't realize that it's the feeling bad that's really the problem. It's not even the belief. It's that you let yourself be unnurtured, uncared for. And as a result, you start having a lower self-esteem, and then your money and your productivity and your value system goes down from Cancer in the 2nd house. Mercury in Libra says you've got to, first of all, think of your heart as being sponsored by the universe, not by money. Money is just a crude form that came from monopoly, basically. Monopolies, basically. And now it's time to not monopolize, on these thoughts of, boy, I never get what my heart wants. I never really want to be, no one ever listens to me. I never get the pretty partner, whatever, that type of thing. No. Instead, be mindful that your heart deserves it. You will have what you want, and you're going to take care of yourself and take care of your feelings so that you feel great, you manifest what you need, and you make it happen. Now, the other part with the opposition to Chiron has to do with your place in the world. See, you have been very highly criticized for your work in the world. People have been either really easy on your character or really hard on your character, just like Gemini's duality is black and white, loved or hated. And what the astrology shows is it's because you weren't loving yourself. If you're not compassionate to your heart, if you don't listen to your heart's needs and go out of your way to be there for your heart in your mind, then the world will not either. And so the opposition to Chiron says this is a turning point. It's time to change your thinking. It's time to be mindful of your feelings. It's time to be compassionate to your heart. And then you'll find the world is compassionate to you. Cancers, you are now, with this mirage issue, is with your emotions, which is crazy because you are the ocean of emotion, right? The crabs live in the ocean. But it's funny because the crabs live in the ocean. When they come out on the land, which is logic, they move left and right, back and forth, right? They don't move in very many circles. But when they're in the ocean, they're all in their emotion. And so the problem is that you tend to go on the land when you need to be in the water, and you tend to go in the water when you need to be in the land. And so you've got your inside outside kind of mixed up. So this particular mirror is about you becoming your own mother or father, that you adopt yourself. And when I say adopt yourself, I'm saying adopt yourself back from year 0, from conception to age 9. You've got to rework that approach of yourself. Give your 1-year-old a new life, your 2-year-old a new life, your 3-year-old. And you know these parts of yourself, especially if you're a parent. The 2-year-old has terrible emotions. 3-year-old's always asking why. The 4-year-old's telling everyone where to go. 5th-year-old, 5-year-old is always knowing what to say. These are all parts of the step system in certain ages. But these parts of yourself now need some emotional care. In other words, don't ask what they think. Nurture them. Give them the things they need. If you need to go out in the sun to feel better, go out in the sun to feel better. Exactly what you do as a parent, implement that for yourself. That is what's keeping you and holding you back in your mirage. Now, when it comes to the Mercury and squaring Jupiter argument, well, this is actually in your ego. This is an argument between your authority as a parent, okay, that you know so much about how to care for people, and that actually getting in the way of people liking you. Yeah, you're actually creating certain emotional issues with your character where people may get the wrong vibe from you. Now, that vibe coming from you is not because you are what they are claiming you to be, but they are immediately labeling you and putting you in a certain box because you have put out an emotional energy. And that emotional energy has to do with the way you think about emotional security. Maybe you think it has to be perfect. Maybe you think you have to come from a perfect home. Maybe you think you have to have money to be secure. But your nervousness about security comes across as something not good when it comes to ego and interaction, and you're getting falsely mislabeled and you're being mistreated as a result. Now, the other aspect that's going on is that Mercury opposing Chiron in Aries says that you also, with your mind being mindful of feelings and emotional security, can also lose faith in your career because of that issue. Because you fail to be compassionate to yourself in the long term meaning every day for a long time, okay, you then create an instability in your career. People start to doubt you, wonder if you're okay. They misread your feelings because they're not the masters of emotion. And what you find yourself being is in some hot water at work or blamed for the wrong thing, or you're the scapegoat for the problem. Why? Because you weren't nice to yourself in the long run. So be nice to yourself, and your boss will be nice to you too. Leos, you are now stepping into a new mirage when it comes to the way you think about yourself. So your thoughts to yourself, what you say to yourself, or what you don't say, what you're not willing to talk about, this is where you have mirage problems. You have communication problems in your mirage. And so the issue is that you are not fair, you are dramatic, you overtip the scales to make it seem bigger than it is, you give more weight to the side you prefer. I mean, it's really kind of a cheat here as far as the way you talk to yourself or fail to talk to yourself. Now, this could also be that you just ignore yourself. You don't talk to yourself. You don't give yourself pep talks. You don't give yourself encouragement. And as a result, you are a scared little lion out there when you get a little thorn in your paw. So now it is now time to start thinking about how you think, looking and observing about how you talk to yourself, constructing the perfect response to yourself every time. Be that perfect king or queen to your inner child or your mind, and coach your mind, program your mind on your own free will of how you want to think about yourself. Here's what's going to happen. Once you change the way you think about yourself, you're going to hear things change about what people say to you and the way you're communicated and the attitudes people give you. All the attitudes you get, whatever they happen to be, come from your own attitude with yourself. An attitude is emotion plus thought put together. Now, when it comes to this little bitter argument between Mercury and Jupiter, for you, this is an argument between your thoughts and your faith. So your faith can break down really quickly when you aren't really feeling very good, okay? And usually what gets you not feeling good was what I just talked about, your mirage problem, how you don't talk nice to yourself and you don't encourage yourself out of puddles. So what's going to happen here is you're going to realize that there's something a little limited about faith. You're maybe expecting a perfect, score on your report card, or you're expecting God to come down and appear in a brownie and talk to you or something. And there's an unfair expectation of heaven, certainly. And that's probably dogma from past life religions. It's in your subconscious. So it's not easy to get to every day. But there's a conflict between that faith and also the way you think. So in one sense, your mind is setting you up for not being faithful. And then the other, your belief structure around faith is setting your mind up for being a little cuckoo. Now, the other opposition we want to talk about is that opposition into Aries. And this has to do with your thoughts versus your belief in yourself. You have issues with your life purpose. You don't have faith that you're going to make it to your life purpose. Sometimes you don't have faith that that the world will show up for you, or you'll get the recognition, or people will believe you, all this sort of thing. And why is that? It's because you are not compassionate in your mind. Your mind is not paying attention to how you feel. And you don't realize that you're colorizing the words and you're making things avant-garde, and you're taking things to extremes because you frankly aren't listening to the fact that you're in a bad mood when you started thinking about this in the first place. So you're going to find a nice faith in your thoughts. You'll have faith in your life purpose when you have compassion in your higher thinking and your big picture thinking. Virgos, your mirage issues have to do with self-worth. Yes, that's right. You are just not nice to yourself and in a bad mirage when it comes to self-worth. You don't give yourself enough credit. You tend to round down. You tend to underprice. You tend to wait for someone else to tell you what you're worth. These are all bad habits, bad Libra codependent, passive aggressive habits about you owning what you're worth. And so you've got to be really fair about what you're actually worth. In other words, maybe you need to go and actually calculate the money you make for someone else, or maybe you need to actually calculate just how many pairs of socks you have, or maybe you need to calculate, all the times that you have gone the extra mile. And maybe just with mathematics, just sit there in a Virgo way, analyze it and go, hey, am I giving myself credit? So if you spent 25 hours, doing good for the world and everything else, you better spend 25 hours saying to yourself, you're amazing, because if not, you're not giving yourself the credit you deserve. So you have bad mirage problems with self-worth. Now that of course turns into money problems, and that turns into abundance problems, and that turns into glass ceilings when it comes to promotions. Now, the other thing interesting is of course that Mercury having a little bit of a tiff with Jupiter at 22 Cancer. This for you has to do with the way you are looking at money and value and your place in the world. You have antiquated beliefs about how you're supposed to feel when you're in the world. All right. How you're supposed to feel. Supposed to according to who? According to what? Right? That's the whole thing. It needs to be according to what feels good. So feeling good should be obvious what feels good. And so so basically what's happening is you will say, well, how can I feel good? I'm not making the money. How can I feel good? I don't have the promotion. How can I feel good about this? I don't have this. I don't have that. So you are wrongfully comparing what you own and what you have under your domain with how well you do in the society. And the truth is, they do connect, but not directly. It's not a direct connection. And so I think you are basically ruining opportunity for promotion and things like that because you're expecting to come with a fat raise. Not always. Sometimes they give a title, not a raise, because the title turns into a raise at another job. Now, the other opposition to Chiron is a doozy for you because it has to do with your ideas of abundance and your ideas of transformation. You lack compassion when it comes to abundance. That means you're not you're not always fair. You don't always you're not always compassionate about the time it takes. You're not always compassionate about spreading the payments over a long period of time. And so what this happens is this actually stiffens you up. It keeps you from being flexible to change because you start to get stiff and worried about controlling all the money or controlling all the value and controlling the control. And so what happens is you are finding that you're going to find that if you're not compassionate and easygoing about your approach to finances and abundance, that things will grow at their own pace and it's okay, then you're going to find that you don't grow at your own pace and you're not okay. That you're getting caught up in an energetic shutdown where your inner boundaries go on strike because your mind says you can't afford to pay the guards. Libras. Now, this is going to affect you. First of all, happy birthday, Libras. You've done a very good job this year. You've been under probably the most pressure of all the signs, I think, to change. I've been talking to you on the sidelines, and you're doing really well. Most that I've talked to you have come out of the cloud or starting to come out of the cloud. And this week, you're going to really come out of the cloud because you have mirage issues with the way you think about yourself and the way you respond to yourself. The way you respond to yourself is not full of love. It's cold. It's Judge Judy-like, kind of bitchy and not, harsh. You're always quoting the laws, and you're not really paying attention to the people in front of you. And by that, you're also usually guilty before you're innocent. All these things that are not legal, frankly. So your behavior to yourself is illegal in the world. You only get away with it because it's private. It's inside your head. And you wonder why people don't respect you. They walk all over you and they take advantage of you because you do the same. And you always sacrifice yourself for the other. God is more intelligent than that. You actually can get what you want and not give away the whole school and the whole bundle. So it's now time to think differently and respond differently to your inner self. And to every time you say something to yourself, like, let's go do that or whatever, be nice, be gentle, be compassionate in your approach. This is going to turn to an ego modification and part of your big birthday transformation that's going to happen. This will turn into what your character is known for by changing who you are. So your reputation issues, if you have any, are all due to the fact the way you treat yourself silently in the background when no one's looking. All right. So don't tell me how nice and harmonic you are when you're going to go yell at yourself for being late. Right. Now, that said, your other issue with the square and Jupiter has to do with career. It turns out that your ego is very ambitious, but you don't really believe that. You tell us that it's not. You tell us that ultimately you're just easygoing, you fit in, you don't really make disruption. That's a lie. The truth of the matter is that God universe expects Libra to make the biggest commotion. Do you know why? Because you're the one who's talented in peace. So of course we want the person who knows peace to be the one that disturbs it. And so you've got to get over yourself. You are here to disturb things, shake things up. People who are out of character, out of integrity are going to be really upset and mad that you called them on their shit, right? So it's now time to reconcile that when it comes to your career and whatnot, your ability to do well and to be promoted and things like that has a lot to do with the fact that your ego's not being honest with yourself about what you really want and what you're really after, and not always forthright about it, and also passive aggressive about it. So you've got to process your feelings, and you've got to be real clear about where you belong, acting and behaving. And when you do that, you're going to have success in your career and things break through to an abundant level. You'll get that promotion as soon as you start acting like you already have it. Now, the other aspect has to do with classic, your ego versus marriage. And it turns out that your beliefs about marriage are a little sick. I don't mean sick in a bad way. I just mean we don't do that anymore. Okay. A lot of times our marriage principles were actually belief structures based on human beings surviving. This is before education. This is before, famous housewife TV shows. Like, this is before a lot of different distributions of what a wife is, what a parent is, what a father is, and what a husband is. So all these things were all antiquated. And now it's really time to feel your way and give yourself a compassionate view. Be compassionate to yourself and your character. It's okay you haven't gotten it right. It's okay. I'm a Taurus. I don't have a lot of money. You don't have to be perfect in that sense. So be compassionate about your character and your ego, and be compassionate to yourself in your marriage and marriage. And you'll find that compassion will rule. When you're easy on your own ego, you'll be easy on your partners. Scorpio, this is a tough one. I say that as your opposite sign. This has to do with faith. Now, your marriage issues are, and you all know this is true, but you do round down to the worst common denominator. You're like, oh my God, it's all over. Oh my God, let's just go straight to hell. Oh my God. And so there's this, oh my God, all the way to the dark, right? All the way to the worst case scenario. Now, I've talked to Scorpios, you're like, this is a coping mechanism. Well, unfortunately, it makes you get sicker and worse, because what happens is if you don't have faith and hold the space, God's not going to do it. Okay. He'll lend you the money, or she'll lend you the energy, but you have to actually hold it and say, it's this. I insist it's this. If you don't insist it's this, you're being unfair to yourself. And guess what goes down in the toilet? Your health. That's right. Most health issues for Scorpios and injuries are due to a lack of faith in every little moment. So your marriage issue is you have a real faith issue. You don't give yourself the benefit of doubt. You don't give yourself the faith and the credit to begin with, or even that God's going to take care of you like everyone else on the planet. You base it on your history, which is not based on that. Your history of things falling apart was because you didn't have yourself giving faith. You didn't give yourself faith in it either, right? So if you don't give yourself the faith, the universe won't either, because remember, reality is a reflection of your inner self. So it's now time to be in a good marriage and go to church and give yourself some faith, not the other church, your own church inside yourself. Now, the aspect of the conflict is that you also, when it comes to your ideas of God, okay, your ideas of God are about to transform. Your beliefs about God are about to transform, and your beliefs about life are about to transform. You're going to begin to realize that because you've had your tail in the air, your stinger in the air, and you focused on the road, you have not necessarily always seen the big picture. You have time for it. You're like Nano, look at the present. You're not really about the big pictures of things. Yeah, you have a relationship to God and you hope it'll be fine. And that's not as much thought as a lot of Scorpios do. They've got to stop there. In the new era, it's time for Scorpios to be having a relationship with God, a daily, moment-to-moment relationship conversation with God. That's Libra in the 12th, by the way. You're supposed to have a full-on relationship. That's what keeps you alive, by the way, when you enter into a fight, is that relationship. But what the universe is saying is that you are conflicted because you have certain beliefs that your parents told you to be, or whatever. Those beliefs have a lot of emotions behind them because you've fought at the Thanksgiving table so many times to say you're right. And now suddenly you're going to make a change? Yes, we actually trust people who change. We don't trust people who don't. So this first conflict on Wednesday is a fight between your faith and your beliefs. The next fight that you'll have, and it will be a fight because you're Scorpios, is between your health and your faith. So I mentioned this already, but if you don't have a nice open relationship to spirit, then you don't allow spirit to pour through you and create miracles in your life. A lot of Scorpios don't get away with shift because they aren't listening and connecting and channeling spirit. So by being mindful of your intuition in heaven, by mindful of your compassion for heaven, that heaven energy will pour into your lifestyle and bring compassion and ease in your daily life. Scorpios have a tough life because, as far as they're concerned, God's tough on them. That's their choice. God never said that. Sagittarius, my Sag friends, You are now having a mirrorage issue when it comes to your social ambition. You used to tell yourself you're the life of the party. You're always a little fashionably late. Everybody likes you. You've got to talk to everybody. You've got to make the rounds. You're going to be there all night. At 4 a.m., you don't have to go home, but you're not staying there, right? Like you're the ones kicked out always at the bar because your approach and how you make yourself be, you throw yourself under the bus. You are unfair. In your mirror, you have expectations of who you are in society that is frankly not fair. Okay. And so that lack of fairness in society brings for you big problems. Okay. When it comes to your dreams coming true, because you go out there ready to make everyone else win and not you, you don't win. Okay. So you have to go out there from the first place all together, all in balance, a bit more timely, a bit more also timely when it's time to leave. Like the party's over, the hosts are tired. But also that is a fairness to you to begin with, because you've put so much expectation on yourself out the door that you have thrown yourself out of balance and you have been not a really nice mirrorage partner to yourself. So you are mirrored in public basically, and your mirrorage is always in public. We can see it, especially when you're young and you're a little rambunctious. Now, the conflicts we were talking about, the square, first of all, on Wednesday, is a square between your social world, like the way you see your reputation, and your personal boundaries, okay? You have some issues with basically how you look at where the final line is and also what you're willing to do in public. They don't really line up, frankly. And so a lot of times what's happened is you'll say in public, oh, I'll do it, no problem. But in your own personal boundaries, you did not open up the hatch. You did not let in the energy. You did not actually do it on the inside. So you smiled and you try to fake it till you make it. It's not going to work anymore. You've got to actually be very clear with your boundaries and your limitations before you go out in the public, before you make any promises, before you try to do anything. I'm not saying you guys don't deliver. You do, but you throw yourself under the bus, you kill yourself, you get tired, all this stuff, because you really weren't looking at your personal values and where your boundaries were, like how comfortable you would be in that situation before you went out there and put yourself in the situation. So I applaud you for being so brave and just jumping out there, but also that's got to hurt after a while. Now, the other opposition to Chiron has to do with your personal dreams. So again, because you have, to some degree, little faith in yourself in the world, little faith in your ability to achieve, and a lot of you call this being humble, by the way. You're like, oh, I'm just being humble. Liar. You actually don't have faith that you're going to do it or pull it off. And so what you say to us is, no, I don't need those big things. I don't need those. I'm a humble Sagittarius. Well, the truth is your heart's not getting what it wants because you are not being spiritually in integrity with the world. You're not saying, this is where I'm at, this is where I wish I was, and this is where I can't be. You're not having that. You want to keep everything jolly. You don't want to bring it down. You want to make it about yourself. But the truth is you do want to make it about yourself, and you've thrown your heart under the bus time and time again. Why do people leave you? Really because of the way you put yourself out in society. Why do people not see your value? Because the way you put yourself out in society. It's how you advertise to begin with. So what are people going to go with? So I think what you're going to do is make friends again with your personal dreams. And I'm excited because when Sagittarius dream, it's like really amazing stuff. Capricorns. Capricorns. Guess where your marriage problems are? Just guess right now. They're in your career. That's right. When it comes to career, you are a slave driver. You work for yourself and you treat yourself like shift. Your boss is an a-hole. Okay. So you basically make promises you can't keep. You make deadlines that you can't make. And sometimes in the old Capricorn world, you took it out on other people, but now the world's all gotten smart. So they've all gotten lawyers and you can't do that anymore. You've got to actually really treat the first employee the best. You're yourself balanced, reasonable goals that are step-by-step. Reward yourself when you've done well. Be kind to yourself and compassionate to yourself when you miss the ball. And, for God's sakes, don't make yourself feel bad, because that's what happens. What happens is when you aren't fair to yourself, you feel badly and poorly. And the thing is, you're not so good at being a nurturer. You're kind of tough. And so as a result, when you start feeling bad, you have no way out of it. And then what you tend to do is go put it on the wife or put it on the husband, put it on the family, make the people you're partner with, make your executive assistant, make the people around you, make them deal with your emotions because you don't know how to deal with it. So it's now time to be fair to yourself as a boss. It's time to be fair to yourself with the decisions you make, the goals you make, and just, take it one step at a time. If you get ahead of schedule, great, but don't insist that you are going to be ahead of schedule if it's really not practical and not what your heart really wanted in the first place. Now, the other aspect that's important is this little square to Jupiter. This is what I was talking about when it comes to your partnerships, because you are incredibly ambitious. You want to change the world, have the world's tallest skyscraper, the biggest company, all these things, but you don't always take toll on the price it costs your family and your partnerships. You wear down people around you sometimes. I got to tell you, I know, I've been married to one. And what happens is that your ambition is like very Difficult to argue with? Yes, you're capable. Yes, you're amazing. So you should do it, but not at the cost of the long-term partnerships who are invested in you. Now, the reason why this is happening is because you have a false belief about feelings. You think they're just going to go away or evaporate or just fix themselves. And so in marriages, you let these things build up and they fester, and you know what it is. Now you're paying alimony. So it's now time to make peace between ambition and long-term partnership. They've got to work hand in hand. I wouldn't say give the power to your partner to vote, but I would say walk in with 3 choices. Now, the other opposition you have is with your emotional field, that you are really very unforgiving about your progress. You don't have compassion about the time it takes for things to happen. You don't have compassion that the universe has its own time clock. You're ruled by Saturn. You think you rule the clock. You think you rule the time clock, the punch-in clock, and when things have to be done. Nope. It's a co-creation, my friend. You have to actually wait for other people to come to the table. And so what happens is your emotional security is always threatened because you are making an impossible, non-compassionate time clock and direction of what you need to do. And what needs to happen is to be compassionate to your feelings. You have to ask your feelings, hey, I'm going to make this goal for my company. How do I feel about pulling it off in a week? How do I feel about pulling it off in 2 weeks? How do I feel about pulling it off in a year? You'll find that, I feel really good about pulling it off in a year. I feel horrible about pulling it off in a week. So if you just asked your own feelings and cared or were compassionate to how this will make you feel in the long term, you would have goals that most likely make it faster because they're not taxed by these up and downs of your emotional swings. Aquarius, you are really not nice to yourself when it comes to believing in yourself. And it's really weird because you have all the cool data. You know all the metaphysics. You know how things go. You know all this stuff. And what you are is you're unfair to yourself. You don't give yourself the benefit of doubt. You just assume that you probably have it wrong. I hear Aquarius say all the time, but I probably got it wrong. It's like, what? Why did you just listen to that fucking 4 hours when now you say you got it wrong? It's like, it's false humility, I think is what it is, to be honest. And so the reason for it ultimately is because of the way you think. We'll talk about that in a minute. So it's now time to be fair. Look at the facts. What do you know? What do you don't? Tell us what you know. Tell us what you don't know. Tell us both. Tell us what you don't know and tell us what you know. That way we get like a clear picture of just how aware you are of it, and you can look strong. And so when you give us a wacky theory that we're really just energy and we turn into a ball of light, we start to believe you because you admitted the fact that you didn't know basketball. So when you are honest about what you don't know with yourself and honest to others, now you'll have a nice mirror with yourself. This is where you are kind of not fair, although you're the fairest sign apparently, right? Not to yourself when it comes to beliefs. Now, the square we were talking about with Cancer, this is a bit more complex because this is an issue you have with emotion. You are terrified of being too emotional. You're afraid that you're going to get caught in a ball of water and drown in those tears. That's what you're afraid of. And you're afraid of also causing emotion for other people because then you have to face your emotion. You have to feel what they feel and feel what you feel and feel all the results of how you feel. That balancing back and forth of emotion freaks you out, man. That's what makes you usually ghost and just disappear from a person's life. You're afraid of that. And so you end up causing it by being afraid of it. Yeah. So the issue actually has to do with your belief structure. See, your belief about what life needs to be has to include the fact that life is sometimes emotional, that sometimes people get into fights, that sometimes things boil over. It's okay that you boil down. That makes you human. You're not a Vulcan. And so your belief structure has to be updated to go, hey, this is what life said. Part of life's purpose is processing the feelings. And when you're in the feelings, you have to go, yep, see, I believe this would happen, so here it is. So basically your beliefs and your lifestyle have got to work more in a harmony and stop coming head to head with each other. That's the square. The other aspect has to do, of course, with your thinking, okay? When it comes to thinking, you are very egotistical. What that means is like you know when you're right, and so you just push that fact out there, And so what happens is sometimes part of the reason why you fall apart is because you actually didn't have the belief in yourself 100%. And so when you said you were absolutely right about this, the other party was like, but I don't know that. And boom, the whole thing collapses. And then the ego goes into this shame cycle and like, oh, I was wrong. I'm dumb. You put the dunce hand on yourself and start punishing yourself. Okay. It's all because really you are not looking at being compassionate. Be compassionate to the fact that you don't know everything and you're going to be wrong some of the times. And also be compassionate to the fact you've got stuff to learn. You're human. You're like just everyone else, a human being in the flesh. So this nice compassionate route between how you think and how you say it and what you know in the first place, of course, all based on believing yourself, is where you have mirage issues and how they play out in your life. And then the Pisces. Pisces, yours are interesting because with you in your particular life, when it comes to Libra energy, energetically, you have Libra when it comes to boundaries. So where you are a bad marriage partner is your boundaries. You'll say, no, I'm going to go to bed at 9. And then you're in bed at midnight. then you say, oh, you know what? I'm going to stop this. And then you start. It's like you don't toe the line. And when you try to correct it, you correct it to an impossible. Like, okay, I overate. I'm going to starve for 2 weeks and then I'll get back on track. No, you just are not compassionate and fair to yourself when it comes to where to draw the line. Now, here's the weird thing. You expect us to all do that too with you. That's the problem. So it's like, oh, give me a break. I'll pay on Tuesday. Well, no, you didn't even pay last month. It's like, so what happens is you end up toxifying your relationships because we can't see where that damn fish is going to stop spinning around. We don't know if it's going to stay in the bowl or jump out. Okay. So you are a fish out of water while you're in the water. Okay. So it has time now to measure what's fair to both parties. First, what's fair to you? A lot of Pisces born feeling guilty, so they're unfair to themselves all the time. So that was always the problem. And now your mirror is that you're not fair to yourself. And then what happens? The world's not fair to you because you're not fair to yourself. Now, the other two parts of this are between your boundaries and your inner child's personal dreams. You actually want some amazing, crazy dreams, okay? You want things to go right and just be magical because you're at the end of the zodiac. You're now returning to God, technically in the Pisces realm. And so it's supposed to be fun on the ascendant lifetime. But the problem is that you are not flexible with your boundaries. Ironically, because you're so messy in the beginning of the marriage, you actually end up being a really tough partner in the end. You're not willing to flex in the big picture of things because you keep screwing up the smallest little things with yourself. So you've got to have a new approach to what you believe, first of all, about what your dreams can be and be realistic about that because sometimes you get a little emotional because you starve yourself of emotion, then you want everything in the world. And sometimes you can be more flexible in your boundaries and give yourself more time and more space in between. The last point here is the opposition with the second house. Because you are not compassionate in your boundaries, you're not compassionate with applying your boundaries. You're kind of harsh about yourself. You'll just like be totally bad and then totally good and then totally bad and totally good. That black white of the two fishes, what that does is actually screw up your abundance. And so you have not been able to really make what you deserve or get paid what you deserve or look the boss in the eye and say, I deserve this because you are not compassionate to your own boundaries and change. You sort of are sweating it about sweating it. So if you're compassionate about where to draw the line in the big term, like I'll take 9 months to do this, you'll find you get paid really well for 9 months. It really has to do with how compassionate you are with drawing the line that turns into how compassionate your boss is with paying the check. All right, friends. Hope you enjoyed that. We've got some changes coming up here in the future. We're going to have these horoscopes cut out and put on our mothership. I'll tell you more about that, but keep that in mind. We've got some cool features coming up ahead. It's going to be an energetic week of, as I said, going forward and building up your marriage. And my last little point of advice for everyone on the planet is you may have an issue with your mother or your wife or your kids, but don't do it this week. Until you get it right with yourself, you're not going to get it right with them. Until they get it right with themselves, they're not going to get it right with you. So we got to take these things in steps. This week, it'll be step 3 to step 10. All right, friends, that's all we have for this episode. I want to remind you that you can follow us on a variety of platforms. For instance, if you want to find us on Facebook, you can find us at siriusjoy.club. Got a big club of people there, all private, no politics, no BS. It's like totally a politic-free zone. It's a zone free of all sorts of things because we think you should have some social media that feels very social. So come to siriusjoy.club. Also, if you want to find out where we are in all social media and where my interviews are and things like that, come to siriusjoy.social. That's a big cool thing. That's our link tree. And you should probably know that this is just scraping the surface of the barrel. For people who subscribe to Sirius Joy, we give them a full plate every day, 7 to 10 text messages a day to your phone with coaching based on your sign, your chart, your natal information. We do a daily pep talk every day that's 20 minutes long, plus also some breath work, plus also some om chants. Positive thinking, and then we've got a plethora of other features just for $19.95 a month. And if you don't believe us, well, give us a try for just $3.99, and you can cancel at any time. And I mean, you can cancel it as soon as you hit cancel. Those text messages stop. Well, after you've ate up the rest of your credit, we're fair to you, but they will stop. I promise. So give it a try. Please give it a try. This is a good time to start really being there for yourself. We'll remind you to be nice to yourself 7 days a week. Come to siriusjoy.com. All right, friends. That's all I have for this week. Have a great week. I'll come back next week. We're all being a brawl because we'll be facing our issues with each other. Until then, I love you. Live, love, be.
Coming up next week on Sirius Joy TV. Join Sensei Christopher Witecki and psychic medium Scott Cruz for another Leading Out Loud this Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Then join us for Astro Mingle on Friday night for a deep convo with QHHT past life regressionist Jeroen de Wit, a level 3 quantum healing hypnosis technique facilitator for nearly 2 decades. He has led thousands of transformative sessions that have helped folks break free from old patterns and step into a life of real authenticity and joy. The best in enlightened entertainment, only on Sirius Joy TV.